I can still feel the cold silence of that moment. The way Veronica Blackwell stared at me from across her husband's desk. My desk, really, for the past 15 years. Her perfectly manicured nails drummed against the antique mahogany as she delivered the news with almost surgical precision. "The board and I have decided to take the curatorial department in a new direction," she said, not bothering to hide the satisfaction in her voice. "Your services are no longer required." 7 words that ended 15 years of dedication. 7 words delivered with a curl of her scarlet lips as Veronica Blackwell, who had been the museum director's wife yesterday and somehow became my superior today, dismissed me with a wave of her manicured hand. "Security will escort you out. Don't bother taking the Xiaoming catalog, it's museum property." I said nothing as I placed my personal items in a cardboard box. The Xiaoming retrospective was my brainchild, 3 years of personally cultivating a relationship with the notoriously reclusive artist. But I wouldn't give Veronica the satisfaction of seeing me beg. My name is Elena Vasquez, and until 9:15 that morning, I was the chief curator of the prestigious Blackwell Museum of Modern Art. James Blackwell had hired me 15 years ago when the museum was struggling to establish relevance. Together, we had transformed it into one of the most celebrated cultural institutions in the country. Then James married Veronica, young, ambitious, and with just enough art world credentials to be dangerous. Within a year, she had inserted herself into every aspect of museum operations. And now, with James away in Shanghai finalizing our landmark exhibition with Xiaoming, she had orchestrated my removal. As security walked me through the grand atrium, past exhibitions I had curated, past stunned staff members, I held my head high. Because while Veronica thought she was merely firing an employee, what she had actually done was cut the invisible threads that held the entire museum together. I spent that evening in my apartment in a daze, trying to process what had happened. My phone rang several times, colleagues and friends calling to check on me, but I wasn't ready to talk. I silenced my phone and opened a bottle of wine, staring at the small Xiaoming sketch the artist had given me personally after our first meeting 3 years ago. It wasn't about the job or the title. It was about the relationships, the trust, the shared vision that had taken years to build. The next morning, I awoke to a flood of voicemails and text messages. Most were supportive notes from colleagues and friends in the art world. But one text caught my attention. From Miguel Santos, my assistant curator and trusted friend who had been with me for 7 years. "Call me ASAP. Crisis at museum. Everything falling apart." I called him immediately. "Elena, thank God." Miguel's voice was tight with stress. "It's chaos here. The Chen family called first thing this morning. They're pulling their entire collection from the exhibition. Thomas Chen himself spoke to Veronica, told her their works were loaned based on your personal oversight of installation and conservation. Without you, the loan agreement is void." My stomach dropped. The Chen collection, 23 priceless works of contemporary Chinese art, was the cornerstone of our East Meets West exhibition set to open in just 3 days. "That's just the beginning," Miguel continued. "Marcus Goldstein called an hour ago, same thing. Their foundation's minimalist pieces are being withdrawn. Their conservator refuses to work with anyone but you. And Keiko Nakamura's assistant just informed us she's canceling her installation entirely." "What's Veronica doing?" I asked. "Having a complete meltdown in her office. She tried calling the Chen family back, but they won't take her calls. She's been screaming at the registration staff as if it's their fault. The PR team is panicking about what to tell the press. We have 300 VIPs flying in, critics from 20 countries." "Miguel, I'm sorry you're caught in the middle of this." "It gets worse," he said, lowering his voice. "Xiaoming's representative called from Shanghai. Apparently, they heard about your termination, and Ming is threatening to pull out of the entire retrospective agreement. He said, and I quote, 'I made arrangement with Elena Vasquez, not with Blackwell Museum.'" I closed my eyes. The Xiaoming retrospective wasn't just an exhibition, it was a historic coup for the museum. The reclusive artist hadn't shown in America in 15 years. Has James been informed? He's on his way back from Shanghai right now. Board members are calling non-stop. There's an emergency meeting scheduled for tomorrow morning. Throughout the day, my phone continued to buzz with notifications. I saw Veronica's name appear multiple times, but I sent each call to voicemail. Whatever crisis she was facing was of her own making. Around 7 p.m., my doorbell rang. When I opened it, I found Veronica Blackwell standing in my hallway, her perfect composure noticeably frayed around the edges. Her hair, normally impeccable, looked as though she'd been running her hands through it repeatedly. The confident smirk from yesterday was gone. "I've been calling you all day," she said accusingly. "I noticed," I replied calmly. "This is a difficult situation," she continued, clearly struggling to maintain her dignity. "There seems to be some confusion regarding our exhibition loans." "No confusion," I replied, "just consequences. Several key lenders are withdrawing their pieces," she said as if I might not be aware. "They seem to be under the impression that their loan agreements were with you personally rather than with the Blackwell." I simply waited, saying nothing. "Look," she said, her voice shifting to a more conciliatory tone, "I may have been hasty in my decision yesterday. The museum is facing a crisis, and I'm prepared to offer you a consulting position to help resolve these issues with our lenders." "A consulting position," I repeated. "Yes, with appropriate compensation, of course. You would work directly with the lenders to ensure the exhibition proceeds as planned." "So I wouldn't be reinstated as chief curator?" "That position has been restructured," she said carefully, "but this consulting role would acknowledge your relationships with these collectors." I looked at her for a long moment, taking in the desperation behind her practiced smile. "You fired me yesterday with security escorts, had me walked out like a criminal, and now you want me to save your exhibition without even the courtesy of an apology?" "I'm trying to find a reasonable solution," she said, an edge creeping into her voice. "No, Veronica. You're trying to find a solution that doesn't require you to admit you made a catastrophic mistake." Her smile vanished. "The museum's reputation is at stake. Surely you care about the institution you helped build." "I do," I acknowledged. "Which is precisely why I won't enable decisions that damage it." "You're making a serious mistake," she warned. "No, Veronica, you already made it. Good evening." I closed the door on her shocked face and leaned against it, my heart pounding. The confrontation had left me shaking, but I felt strangely at peace with my decision. The next morning, Miguel called again. "It's gotten worse," he said without preamble. "The development office is in panic mode. 3 major donors have called to express concerns about the museum's direction and are reconsidering their pledges for the new wing. Press is starting to get wind that something's wrong. James landed early this morning and came straight to the museum. He and Veronica had a screaming match that half the security staff overheard." "What about the exhibition?" "Registration is getting legal involved to review all the loan agreements, but it's not looking good. Most of them specifically name you as the responsible curator. Without those pieces, we've got empty walls and a lot of explaining to do." At 10:17 a.m., James himself called. "Elena, what the hell is happening?" he demanded, his voice rough with jet lag and panic. "I've got Zhao Ming threatening to cancel the entire exhibition. The Chens are pulling their collection. Keiko says she won't work with anyone but you." "I'm surprised Veronica didn't inform you of her decisions," I replied, keeping my voice deliberately neutral. "She told me she was making minor staffing adjustments," he said bitterly. "Not firing the person who's built this museum's reputation for the past 15 years. Not alienating every major collector and artist we work with." "Well, I'm sure she has capable replacements in mind," I said. "Elena, please," his voice softened. "This exhibition is 5 years of your work. Don't let it collapse because of this situation. This situation is that your wife fired me without cause or consultation, had security escort me out like a criminal, and then showed up at my apartment expecting me to salvage her mistake without so much as an apology." The line went quiet for a moment. "Then, what would it take to fix this?" Before I could answer, my other line beeped. It was Catherine Winters, director of the Whitney Museum. James, I need to take another call. We'll speak later. I switched lines. Catherine, good morning. Elena, what a pleasure. I've just heard about your situation at the Blackwell. Unfortunate timing with your big exhibition about to open, or perhaps not opening, as I'm hearing. News travels fast, I observed. The art world runs on relationships and gossip, as you well know, she said smoothly. Which brings me to the purpose of my call. We've been looking for someone to lead our global contemporary program, and your expertise would be invaluable. As our new director of international collections, you'd have complete curatorial autonomy. It's an intriguing offer, I admitted. Even more intriguing, I received a call from Thomas Chen this morning. He asked if we might be interested in hosting his collection, should you join our team. Apparently, he's quite disappointed with the Blackwell at the moment. My pulse quickened. The Chen collection at the Whitney would be a major coup and a devastating loss for the Blackwell. I'd like to discuss this further, I told her. Wonderful. My assistant will set up a meeting. In the meantime, I suggest you keep your options open. I understand the Blackwell is in quite a crisis. Within an hour of that call, James called again. I've called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Please come. We need to fix this. The Whitney has offered me a position, I told him. Director of International Collections. The line went silent for a moment. I understand, he finally said. But please, before you make any decisions, come to the meeting. Hear what we have to say. I agreed, partly out of respect for our 15-year history, partly because a small human part of me wanted to see Veronica's face when she realized the true magnitude of her mistake. The Blackwell's boardroom was charged with tension when I arrived the next morning. The trustees, a mixture of old money, new tech wealth, and serious collectors, sat in uncomfortable silence. James looked exhausted with dark circles under his eyes. Veronica sat beside him, impeccably dressed as always, but her usual confidence was visibly diminished. Thank you all for coming on such short notice, James began. We're facing an unprecedented crisis. Our East Meets West exhibition, scheduled to open tomorrow night, is on the verge of collapse. Major lenders have withdrawn their collections. Artists have canceled their participation. Several donors are reconsidering their support. What exactly precipitated this crisis? Asked Howard Levy, the board's most senior member. All eyes turned to James, who took a deep breath. 2 days ago, Elena, our chief curator for 15 years, was terminated without my knowledge or board consultation. Every major withdrawal and cancellation has cited this specific action as their reason. The room erupted in exclamations and questions. Veronica's face flushed with anger. I was bringing fresh vision to an outdated curatorial approach, she insisted. As deputy director? A title that was never approved by this board, countered Rebecca Goldstein, whose family had supported the museum since its founding. The simple fact, James continued, is that in less than 48 hours, we've lost commitments from the Chen Collection, the Goldstein Foundation, Keiko Nakamura, and Zhao Ming himself. That's roughly 80% of our exhibition content, representing works valued at over $300 million. And the Whitney has already approached these collectors about relocating their loans, I added quietly. They've also offered me the position of Director of International Collections. A stunned silence fell over the room. The Whitney was not just a competitor, it was their most feared rival for donors, press coverage, and cultural relevance. This situation is untenable, Howard Levy said finally. The question is what can be done to salvage it. Elena, would you consider returning to the Blackwell? All eyes turned to me. I could feel Veronica's gaze, but I kept my focus on the board members. I would consider it, I said calmly, under certain conditions. Which are? James asked. First, reinstatement as chief curator with a 5-year contract that cannot be terminated without board approval. Second, promotion to artistic director with oversight of all exhibitions, acquisitions, and programming. And third, Howard Levy asked, Veronica returns to her role as Director of Development and Digital Initiatives, with no authority over curatorial decisions or staff. The room erupted again. Veronica leapt to her feet, abandoning all pretense of composure. "This is extortion," she cried. "I am the deputy director. James, are you going to let her dictate terms like this?" A tense silence filled the room. Veronica's hands were clasped so tightly together that her knuckles had turned white, but she remained silent. "These terms are entirely reasonable given the circumstances," Rebecca Goldstein said firmly. James looked at Veronica, then at the board members watching the drama unfold. His shoulders sagged slightly under the weight of the crisis at hand. "The exhibition opens tomorrow night," he said quietly. "We have 300 VIPs flying in from around the world, press from 20 countries. Without Elena, we have no exhibition." He turned to me. "Your terms are accepted." "James," Veronica's voice cracked with disbelief. "The board will formalize these decisions with a vote," James continued, ignoring his wife's outburst. "But given the urgency of our situation, Elena will resume her duties immediately." The vote was unanimous, with Veronica abstaining in silent fury. I returned to my office an hour later to find it exactly as I had left it, down to the Zhao Ming catalog. Veronica had tried to prevent me from taking. Miguel rushed in, his face breaking into a relieved smile. "Thank God you're back," he said. "It's been a nightmare." I spent the rest of the day on the phone with collectors and artists, personally assuring them that their works would receive the proper care they deserved. By evening, most had agreed to reinstate their loans. Trucks that had been en route to retrieve artworks were redirected back to the museum. Keiko Nakamura confirmed she would arrive that night to complete her installation. The exhibition would proceed as planned. The East Meets West opening was the most successful in the museum's history. Critics raved about the unprecedented assembly of contemporary masterpieces. Collectors and artists mingled with celebrities and cultural leaders. And I moved through it all as the newly minted artistic director, accepting congratulations and quietly cementing relationships that would sustain the museum for years to come. Veronica attended, of course. She stood beside James in a stunning designer gown, smiling for photographers and making small talk with donors. But everyone in the art world knew what had happened. Everyone understood the power dynamics that had shifted so dramatically in just 3 days. In the months that followed, Veronica focused on her development role, raising funds and modernizing the museum's digital presence, areas where her skills were genuinely valuable. Our professional interactions were coldly civil. I never mentioned her attempted power play, and she never apologized for it. 6 months later, she resigned to accept a position at a smaller museum in Los Angeles. Her marriage to James ended shortly thereafter, a quiet, private dissolution that barely made the society pages. 3 years have passed since that morning when Veronica fired me. The Blackwell Museum has flourished under my artistic direction, securing unprecedented exhibitions, major gifts, and international acclaim. James has stepped back from day-to-day operations to focus on his true passion, collecting, while I manage the institution we built together. Sometimes when I walk the galleries before opening hours, I think about Veronica's face when she realized the true cost of her impulsive decision. How, in trying to consolidate her power, she destroyed it entirely. She didn't understand that a museum isn't just a building filled with art. It's a living ecosystem of relationships, trust, and shared passion. And in the art world, those relationships don't belong to institutions. They belong to people. Her attempt to push me out cost her everything. I never sought revenge. I simply stood my ground when someone tried to take what I had spent a lifetime building. When faced with such a choice, you can either walk away or you can stand firm. I chose to stand. And now I stand at the helm of one of the world's great museums, my vision shaping a cultural legacy that will outlive us all. There's a certain poetic justice in that, the kind worthy of its own exhibition.